Yo, what is up, everybody? This is Demo1138. You can just call me Demo. And we're back for another unscripted, unedited, a little chat, yap fest. And this afternoon, we're talking about Silo. Silo is an ongoing sci fi mystery box series. Um, just think From or Severance combined with Fallout. It's a real generalized way of putting it, but that should kind of get you the general idea. And today, I'm not doing episode reviews. I'm a little late to the show. I am all caught up, but I'm just going to share my thoughts, maybe a little bit of theory crafting later on, a little bit of meta analysis. There will be no spoilers, so if you haven't seen it yet, um, at worst, there'll be minor spoilers. You'll be fine. Um, but yeah, like I said, Silo, it's on currently on season 3, and you can see it on Apple TV. Um, but yeah, so far my thoughts on the series. Um, so season 1 was awesome. Um, I think the first episode of season 1, if somebody presented that to me as a piece of short sci-fi fiction, um, I'd be satisfied with just that. Sure, it has a lot of unanswered questions, but it had a lot of real interesting characters, interesting mysteries that were compelling enough to not even need to get those answers. And visually, it was pretty good too. Um, but the whole of season 1 was very, very good. Season 2, I thought season 2 was a little goofy. Some of the acting, maybe the directing. It's hard to say with that kind of stuff. It could be the acting, it could be the direction, it could be the writing. You know what I mean? But it was a little hokey at times. Just on the face of it, just based on the script, what's on paper, like it is good. There's just some bits and pieces in there with this whole little revolution that was going on that just it was a little cornball, but still worth the watch. Um, and that leads us into season 3, which we're in the middle of right now. I believe we're 4 or 5 episodes in, and I think the first episode of season 3, I was like, it's still feeling a little hokey, but once they opened up and started going with this season, I've been really, really enjoying it. Um, so I guess basic premise: there are these silos that house thousands of people. You cannot leave, according to the powers that be. The outside is dangerous, but of course, nobody can really confirm if it is or isn't, and if it is, why it is, uh, and if it isn't, why are we not allowed to go out? There are a lot of mysteries in this. Like I said, it's like a puzzle box sci-fi, and I love me a puzzle box. Um, but all that being said, the first little bit of theory crafting that I'm going to do now, this isn't technically spoilers, but if you haven't seen the show, it might not make too much sense to you. But if you have been following along, you should be able to hear me out on this. Now, one big thing about this show are the relics. These are objects from before people were put into the silos, and the powers that be, mainly IT and judicial, um, they don't want people to have these. And the general stated reason, maybe unstated, but the general implied reason is that if people find relics, they'll start to remember things about the past, like before the silo. Um, but this has kind of made me think a little bit. Um, just this Pez dispenser, for example, this is like one of the most reoccurring relics in the show. And while it does have, some personal attachment with some of the characters, um, according to the timeline that we've been given in the show, none of the characters would have ever even encountered a Pez dispenser. They wouldn't know what it is. So the question that I have is, or let me set up a little thought experiment, right? So if somebody gave me an item from my childhood that I had forgotten about, that would potentially spark some memories of my childhood, right? But if somebody gave me an item from 150 years before I was born, it ain't gonna do nothing, right? Now, this Pez dispenser is supposedly older than any of the people in the silo. So why would they care if people in the silo got the Pez dispenser? And it made me wonder that maybe the silo isn't as old as we think it is, and a lot of these relics aren't as old. And there is a potential for these relics to actually wake up memories in people, and they might realize that, oh, hey, wait a minute, we haven't been here for 150 plus years. We've been here for maybe 2 generations, right? So that's just something to think about. Um, I don't know if I'm onto anything. They are, I suppose, other reasons why they would want to keep these relics secret. I'm just to keep people from asking questions, I guess, is good enough. But it did strike me as a little weird in terms of timeline. Maybe the silos aren't as old as we think. Now, a few weeks back, I was on Real Enigma and Theories channel. If you haven't checked out his channel, definitely check it out. Um, and he asked a real intelligent question. And I just want to emphasize this, that it was an intelligent question, right? You see, intelligent people don't just give you answers. They ask the right questions, and they ask good questions, and they ask meaningful questions. And basically what he was asking is that, because here's some more minor spoilers. Currently, we're at a point in the story where the people who run the silo might want to start slowly erasing the memories of the people in the silo so that they can reinstate control over them. Um, and Real asked, it's like, hey, if you deleted all of my memories, am I even me anymore? Like, am I even the same person? And um, I was gonna talk about this on his show, but I was like, you know what, this is gonna take way too long, and I don't want to muck up his airwaves with my stuff. So here we go. Um, because I have some, I'm putting big fat air quotes on this. I have some answers for that kind of question. And in this discussion, you're going to be asking yourself: is the concept of self even real? Is it a meaningful concept? Um, it's hard to say. So, and like a lot of the best questions in the world existing right now, there isn't a straightforward answer, and that's what makes them exciting. So let's get into this. Um, so let's look at it this way, right? If if some say you got this coffee mug, right? Um, we all agree that this is a coffee mug, right? It's it's red. It's about normal size coffee mug, whatever. Now, if we change the color of this coffee mug, it's still a coffee mug, right? So what we can gather from that is that the color of the coffee mug is not essential to it being a coffee mug, right? Because it's an attribute of our original coffee mug. We changed it, and then it still remains a coffee mug, right? So that is kind of like, our memories, right? So if our memories are changeable, then they are not essential parts of us as an individual, of ourself, right? Essentially. Um, so, that's something to think about. There's got to be something in each of us that's underlying that no matter what changes, whether it's our memories, whether we lose an arm or a leg, because if you lose a finger, you're still you, right? Um, so our body and our memories and things like that, those come and go all the time, and we would all say that we are still ourselves, right? So then those things must not be essential to who we are, which is, it leads us to another interesting question. Then, if not that, then what, right? Um, However, it could be said that, maybe these changes to our memories, those changes themselves, are essential to being ourselves. When you factor time into things, it gets a little bit more interesting and a little bit murkier. Um, but now, if you look on the other side, if memories are necessary to who we are as an individual, if memories are necessary to ourselves, right, then you have to concede the fact that you are a different person at every single moment, because memories are created, memories are forgotten. Um, Memories can be false. This happens all the time in like witness testimony and stuff. Um, so yeah, if you want to say that my memories and my thoughts are essential to who I am as a person, then yeah, you just gotta accept the fact that at every given moment you're a different person than you were a moment ago. And at that point, what are you preserving when you say you want to preserve yourself? Uh, anyway, that's a little bit of meta commentary on what's going on with this series right now. But I also want to kind of pull this concept of erasing people's memories and kind of give you some real life uh, examples of the kinds of things that this show is talking about, right? So, like any good sci fi, Silo is no exception. This isn't just a fancy high tech story, this is some kind of examination of the world that we live in now. Good sci fi always comments on the now. So, what could Silo be saying when it's talking about this, about deleting these people's memories or reshaping their memories in order to maintain control, right? Now, I would argue that in real life, they are doing something similar, although they're not just dropping a bunch of shit in the water and then we suddenly forgot, what we were doing 3 weeks ago. What's happening in real life is a rewriting of generational memory, right? Um, so let me give you an example from my personal life, right? So when I was younger, not a lot of people smoked weed. It wasn't a common thing. And getting weed was kind of difficult, but you could get it and it was good and you got a fair price. But then when the next generation was coming in and they discovered weed, they didn't have anybody to show them, like, hey, this is good weed, this is dirt weed, this is nice manicured buds, this is brick. And nobody was there to tell them, what they should be paying for it. So the people that sold the weed um, would sell them small amounts of garbage for twice the price, right? And then that affected us old heads, because now we couldn't get the good stuff and we were paying out the ass, right? And that's kind of what I mean by generational memory, right? Like, the older generation didn't have an opportunity to pass on the information to the younger generation, which led the quote unquote powers that be, um, it led them to being able to manipulate things in their favor. I can give you some other examples that are a little maybe less personal, but I think everybody should be able to relate to them, like the concept of ownership. As more and more media goes digital, um, you own nothing. You pay for everything. You own nothing. Um, but old heads like me, I remember when I could go buy a VHS, a DVD, a video game on a CD or a cartridge, and I could just play that, right? They weren't selling me microtransactions. They weren't nickel and diming me. I bought what I bought. I owned it. Everything was on the disc. I didn't have to pay for extras. Just played the game. or watch the movie, right? Even in terms of like quality, like your food, right? Like it's not just like a boomer attitude to say, oh, back in my day, X, Y, and Z was better. Like, no, we're trying to tell you something, little bro, right? Certain things were actually better. And we're not just saying that because we're feeling nostalgic. We're saying that because we want you to know that you're getting ripped off, right? And uh, this is by design, right? I'm not going to say who. I'm not like a big conspiratorial kind of thinker, but look, man, the saying "power corrupts absolute, power corrupts absolutely." Like it's definitely just it's happening. Couldn't tell you who's behind it all, but they do not want old heads like me talking to, you know, uh, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. They don't want this kind of generational communication going on, right? And why do they not want this? Is because they want to make sure the younger generation has no memories of what it means to own, what it means for something to have quality, right? And I'm not talking about the shit that you get at Walmart where you buy a cheap little plastic coffee mug, use it twice, and then throw it out. Because back in the day we had a coffee mug and we held that stuff for decades, and this was my favorite coffee mug, and I drank out of it every day, right? Those concepts of ownership, those concepts of quality, those concepts of social norms, they disappear and they weaken if the older generation is not allowed to communicate with the younger generation. So, that being said, I guess what's the message here is if you're an old head, don't count out the young kids, man. They're not being stupid because they want to be stupid, right? They just haven't been told. So you got to have some patience with them, and you have to try to figure out a way to communicate with them in a way that they're going to understand. And what does that mean to the younger generations, the younger folk? Uh, Not every person older than you is a boomer, right? I'm technically a millennial. I'm on the edge of millennial in Gen X. And Gen X is kind of boomerish. Don't come at me in the comments. Um, but not everybody older than you is a boomer. Not everybody older than you is out of touch. Some of us are very in touch. Some of us were born on the internet. You know what I mean? And just because our memes are a little bit different and our sense of humor is a little bit different, it doesn't mean that we're like a foreign species to you. So I guess that's the takeaway, right? Talk, chat, speak with each other, share information, because if we don't, that's how they erase this generational memory, this cultural memory of. I mean, shit. I didn't even mention home ownership, right? Like they're trying to erase that very concept. They want it so that nobody owns a home, everybody rents. How are they going to do that? They're going to make sure that the younger generation doesn't talk to the older generation. They're going to make sure that the younger generation doesn't know that you should be able to buy a house on a single full-time income, right? So, yeah, if you're wondering why shit is shitty, that is what's going on. And I'm going to say it one more time. If you're an older person, keep that line of communication open with the younger people and have patience. If you're a younger person, not every person older than you is a boomer, and some of the things that they have to say are important. Anyway, this kind of went a little off the rails. I swear to God, this was an episode about Silo. Um, at any rate, new to the game, so still kind of working on format stuff and things like that. So, this is unscripted. This is unedited. You kind of get what you get. I get what I get. So any feedback, comments, it's always welcome. If you could do me the favor and like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, all that YouTube stuff, that'd be really, really helpful. Just so I can get out there a little bit, get a little bit more reach. But at the end of the day, even now, especially now, it's getting harder and harder to even be able to get monetized on YouTube. They just doubled the requirements across the board in order for smaller channels to get monetized. And even if this channel did, qualify for monetization, I would not be making anything off of that. So if you do like, what I'm doing, and you do want to see the show grow and improve, please check out my Patreon. The link is in the channel description, and I will try to put it in the video description. Um, is the way that I'm working the Patreon right now is that there's multiple different tiers, but they're currently all the same thing. Um, you know, you sign up at whatever tier. We'll list your name at the end of an episode, either put it on screen or I'll read them out loud. And if I get, a decent amount of Patreons at a variety of different tiers, then I'll start talking to my patrons and kind of seeing what kind of benefits they want and what they like and all that stuff. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for me today. I do recommend Silo, even if you don't want to get, in so deep as I got. But definitely go check it out. It's an excellent show. There is we're midway through season 3. You can watch it on Apple TV. And yeah, love to hear from you in the comments. So let me know what you think. And until next time, peace.